one day after 22 years, next, I don't know, whatever, 22 plus years, I woke up and I woke up at about 10:30 in the morning, which is pretty early for me in that stage of the game. And I drove myself to a detox. I was worried about the withdrawals from alcohol because I had heard that they could be really serious and I could have a convulsion and die. And I was at a place where in the mornings when I would wake up, I'd be pretty shaky. And so my body was pretty seriously addicted and craving alcohol. So I drove myself to a detox one Sunday morning and I checked myself in. And it was a humbling experience.
You're listening to When God Intervenes, the podcast where faith, hope, and healing come together for families with a loved one battling addiction. Welcome to another episode of When God Intervenes. I'm your host, Darrell Rogers, and I'm here with Shane Jacob today. He's my guest. And first of all, I just want to say welcome, Shane, and I appreciate you agreeing to be a guest on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Darrell. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, good. It's good to have you here. And you know, I'm looking at you wearing your cowboy hat there, and I have to tell you, it takes me back to my childhood. I'm 63 years old, and cowboys were a big thing when I was a kid growing up. Everybody wanted to be a cowboy, and I think there's that. Every little boy somewhere, I think most little boys still have that dream. So really neat. I've had over the years, I've done a little bit of horseback riding, but it's been very limited. Okay, so I'll just put that right out there. Don't know that much about horses. I love animals of all types, and been an outdoorsman most of my life. So I think we would probably click on that level. Why don't you tell me? I know you said you've been in the horse business in one way or another for over 30 years, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I like you just described, I was when I was ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a cowboy and do all the cool things cowboys do. And matter of fact, I was named after a Western movie. Alan Ladd. There's a Western movie titled Shane that my mom and dad loved, and so that was where my name came from. And so, eventually I did. I been blessed and fortunate enough to be able to spend my time, with horses and in my career. I had a couple of early on, right out of high school, and then again, just while I was working at college, I had a couple of jobs. But for the most part, my adult life, I've been in the horse industry, involved in all kinds of cool things that cowboys do.
That's cool. That's really cool. Um, well, why don't we talk about a couple of those things real quick? What are some of the things that you have done in the horse industry?
Yeah. Uh, well, I kind of began, my family had horses. I came from a sheep ranching family in Utah. My family had horses, but I really didn't, we rode horses and we had horses, but I didn't know much about it. I thought I did until I knew I didn't. But then uh, I just as a means of survival, I came across a man, Mike Dawson, and he taught me how to shoe horses. And so I became a professional farrier. I apprenticed with him for 4.5 years, and I moved up in that, and I established a business as a farrier in Southern Nevada. So I've been working on hoof care. As a farrier, also known as horseshoer, takes care of horses' feet, horses' feet are extremely the one of the two, between what goes in their mouth and their feet. Those are the two most important things about a horse's health, because they need to be on their feet so much just to be healthy. So I've done that. I had a stud horse. I bred some horses. I've worked on the world famous Lipizzan Honors. I've loped my horse down Las Vegas Boulevard on a fundraiser event. I've trained horses, rode horses. We board horses today. I have some young horses. I had a horse auction for a while, so I've done a number of things, and this just for the beginning. But that's kind of a basic of. I own a horse feed business here in Las Vegas. It currently operates Jacob Livestock. We provide horse hay and other types of feed to the horses in all throughout southern Nevada. And like I said, we board horses. My wife and I have a handful. I think we have two, four, five, six something horses, and so I like to develop horses, and so
Mhm.
we've been blessed to enjoy horses for a long time.
That's great. That's great. And you live in Nevada, right? And is that your home state, or did you move there at some point?
From Utah, been in Las Vegas, Nevada, right on the edge of Las Vegas for
Mhm.
quite a long time.
The title of the podcast is When God Intervenes. And really, my audience is mostly parents, a lot of times as mothers, who have a son or daughter battling drug or alcohol addiction. And I've noticed a lot of programs out there, treatment programs, trauma recovery type programs, things like that, that use horses as part of their therapy. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I can. One of my core principles is uh, belief in God is one of the core principles that we use in my program, Stable Living. And we use horses to demonstrate the principles. And people say to me, "Well, how can a horse testify of God? What are you talking about, Shane?" And really, what I'm just talking about is, it's almost impossible to be in the proximity, to be in the presence of a horse, to be right there no matter what you're doing, just to be up close is enough to not feel the magnificence, the majesty of their being, and to it's kind of hard not to imagine that a power greater than ourselves would created such a creature. Um, it's known as hippotherapy, which is horse therapy used for all different kinds of things. Somehow there's a connection that we can't see with our eyes. Uh, there's thoughts that create feelings when we're around horses that have been proven to be beneficial for all kinds of therapy. We do limited actual live events with horses, just kind of bigger events a couple of times a year. Most of our program is just using principles that I've learned from working with horses that horses demonstrate that it makes it interesting, and it seems like I get more cooperation when we relate the principles of life to horses, and they have a lot of valuable lessons to learn.
Yeah, I have a client. I think I mentioned to you when we spoke on the telephone that I have a client who is a family recovery coaching client that volunteers. I mean, I always encourage my clients to find something that they can do that helps bring them some meaning to life, and it is also an outlet to relieve stress. And she volunteers working with horses, and is there almost on a daily basis. And she's retired, and so it's been a really a blessing for her to be able to do that. She gets a lot out of that. So definitely there's therapeutic benefits in working with horses. I recognize that. Do you have any personal examples of maybe a person who's battling addiction, or any experience yourself with that, that would indicate that horses can be helpful in a recovery process?
Yeah, I don't, maybe not specifically addiction, but
Hmm.
but the principles on other things like post-traumatic stress disorder and the changes that terminally ill people have. That there's actually research on uh, therapy with horses. I was involved in a group called Cowboys for Miracles, which was for we took terminally ill children and we basically built these devices, kind of I don't know, we built something that would strap onto the saddle that would support people if they couldn't support themselves, so they could just kind of go for a ride on a horse. And it turned out that over over a small period of time that there were substantial changes in their health. I've been involved with quite a lot of our military people and seen just dramatic changes. A lot of times people get a sense of purpose. I think they feel closer to their maker. I think they feel more, I don't know, grounded. I think they get just a sense of peace, and maybe for a moment, those moments of peace allow for a little bit of reflection on self-reflection, and a lot of times there can be positive change, and I have seen that up close, and not so much directly with on addiction, but I'm sure it's the same thing because it's the same principles.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If you're working with PTSD, people suffering with PTSD, the trauma there, almost everyone struggling with addiction has some type of underlying trauma. So, yeah, I can definitely see the connection there. So, not knowing a lot about horses, you making me think a little bit about different types of horses and before I get into that, I want to just say this. You said something earlier about how just being so close to one of a creature that's such a magnificent creature that God created, and I can really relate to that a lot. Not with a lot of experience with horses, but I've been on horses a few times, and I get that you become almost like you're working together as a unit, right? Am I right about that? That
Yeah.
the horse understands a little bit, you understand the horse. There's some communication going on there, and but just I say that all the time. I live here in North Carolina in the country. I moved to the country a few months back. And I've always been an outdoorsman, and I'm really an outdoorsman because I love the animals. I love observing the animals, observing nature, being out in the woods, in nature, not just the animals, but the plants. And all of it speaks to me like, hey, there had to be an intelligent designer behind all of this. And this is God's creation and how magnificent it is. And I watched the deer come into my yard and the coyotes, and I can see the deer pretty close up. They come right into my backyard now. They're eating my lawn, but but I love to watch them, and I look at that animal and I'm just amazed at what a magnificent creature it is. So I can just imagine that same sensation being with a horse. Talk to me a little bit about the different breeds or different types of horses out there, and how they're different, and how that um, plays into it all.
Yeah. Our relationship, just wanted to touch on what you just said. I'll comment on that, and that is,
Uh,
animals and nature just bring us, I think is they give us a sense that I think they let us get outside of ourselves a little bit and just look at
mm,
the how great of a creation this place is that we live and all the things inside of it. As far as horse breeds go, awful interesting. There's a lot of horse breeds. The largest
uh-huh,
horse breed registry in the world is the American Quarter Horse Association.
uh-huh,
Second is the American Paint Horse Association. Then the Jockey Club, also known as thoroughbreds, are racing horses, and then it goes on from there. And so horse breeds are, similar to people and nations and cultures, and they're all similar. They're all, the same species. They're all horses, but they have a little bit different tendency. They're all individuals
mhm,
inside of those groups, inside of those breeds, but their heritage, a lot of them are more designed for different things.
sure.
All horses have a tremendous lung capacity. I believe that they were designed to carry people in transportation just because of their tremendous lung capacity and their small digestive uh, and temperamental digestive system. But some horses are, more suited to certain things, more suited to endurance, more suited to more athletic, short time maneuvers. A quarter horse that got its name because it was designed only to go to a quarter mile rather than a mile
Mm,
plus. With the Jockey Club, Arabians are known to be able to travel long distances and be hardy throughout rough terrain like dry, rough desert climates.
mhm,
The Nez Perce Indians in the let's see, Midwest and the Northwest, North Central, wherever, up in the Plains country, were credited for developing or breeding the Appaloosa horse, which is kind of a combination, all beautiful creatures in their own right, and all individuals inside their specialty breeds.
Have you had any experience with the rodeo at all?
Yeah, well, as a young man, I thought that I'd be a rodeo star and be rich and famous, and that people would be clamoring to be able to for me to give them a signature to sign their cowboy hat or whatever. So I tried my
Mhm.
hand at being a rodeo star, and when I was in my 20s, and that didn't go too far. I was better in my mind than I turned out to be. Actually riding bareback horses, but I did experience a little bit of that. And Las Vegas, as you know, or may not know, is the home of the Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association National Finals Rodeo every December. It's
Okay.
10 days of a lot of, you wouldn't think Las Vegas, Nevada as a horse community, but it's a tremendous horse community. And in addition to that, we host horse events throughout the year.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I did not know that about Las Vegas. Um, so you have a ranch there. We just call it a ranch, or um, yeah.
Yeah, we have a small little place here. We have about 20-ish horses on 20 plus horses on our little property here.
Tell me a little bit about, do you do, I'm trying to remember now, do you do coaching of any type outside, or you just do training if people want to come and, um, come to your location, or do you do anything online with people in terms of working with the horses?
Yeah, our my stable living coaching is online coaching, and we do have a couple of in-person events throughout the year, but most of our coaching is online.
Okay. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and tell us how people can get in touch with you, and give us your website and everything?
Sure. The horsemanshipjourney.com. That's the place to go. That's where all our information is about us. It's thehorsemanshipjourney.com.
Do you have any interesting stories about horses? Do you have anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share?
Oh man, I got so many
I
stories.
bet you have a few.
Yeah.
What's your favorite one?
Well, I like to relate them to principles. Maybe I could do that. I don't know what your time frame is or how much I'm gonna get into my story about addiction, but horses, I like to say, with the help of God and horses, I was able to finally break free from my own addiction. And you know, one of the things that happened to me in that process was I was riding around one day, schooling a horse, trying to train a horse, and of course I'd been drinking, so I don't know how good of a job I was doing at communicating, or doing a very good job anyway. And the young horse that only had a few rides, and so he was very inexperienced, and he zigged and I zagged, and I ended up on the ground pretty hard. And I was pretty unhappy, and I was shaking off the dirt out of my eyes and trying to crawl around and find my hat, and not feeling too happy, and stiff, and seeing if I was anything broken and whatnot. And the horse, I don't even know what happened. He just wandered around not too far away, and he came over, he just wandered over and kind of stepping on his rein a little bit, just kind of poking around like, what's your problem? What are you doing on the ground? And as I was catching my breath, I just said to him, I said, why did you do that to me? And the, yeah, this is where you may think I need to be committed, but something said to me, you did it to yourself. Now, at the time, I looked at that horse like he actually spoke to me. I don't
Mhm.
know that I believe that to be true, but I heard those words in my ears,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
whatever I heard or wherever it came from, it turned out to be true. And because I reflected on that for a long time after I went on after that moment, but it was kind of an interesting moment, and wherever that inspiration came from, it was certainly the truth.
a lot of times the revelations that we get, or the sort of ideas that we get that, okay, I need to change something. It comes in the terms, it comes in the package of a still small voice. You know, we hear the words, we hear the voice, and you can say, well, it's a thought, or but where did the thought come from? You know, and was it God speaking, or, you know, did he speak to you through the horse? You know, I mean, certainly through what happened and through the behavior of the horse. You know, a lot of that. I think circumstances and thoughts. You know, we get thoughts, and it's almost. I mean, I would not say I've never heard it. I can't say that I've heard an audible voice like that, but it's almost audible sometimes. It's such a powerful message that you're hearing, and a lot of times those can be pivotal. That didn't come out right. Pivotal moments in our lives that really change the directions of our life.
It was a pivotal moment, Daryl, because he wasn't, what I heard, I did not take as what I had done to myself was what referring to that moment. I had reflected
Mm,
on the larger picture that, that had been gnawing at me for so long, for so
mhm,
many years, you know. And so when I heard this, I didn't, my thought about it was that what I was hearing was I took it as referring to, my position, what I'm doing in my life, what my
mm, mhm.
priorities are and what's going on with you, not necessarily specifically that moment, even though, well,
Right.
that moment was part of it.
Yeah. 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 That makes a lot of sense. So you were battling alcohol addiction a little bit there, and
Well,
sounds
not a
like
little bit,
yeah,
not a little bit. There wasn't a
yeah, a
little bit.
lot, a big bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But you were able to walk away from that, it sounds like, or I'm sure it was a process for you.
I'll tell you just a little bit about it. I've reflected on this a lot, and I've watched. I have a brother and I have a sister currently that are have addictions to drugs, and I know how hard it is to watch. And so when I talk to people that are addicted, I also can imagine what it was like to watch me for so long. But there is hope, because stories like mine are do happen. And I have two specific things that I believe are that make a difference. And what happened to me in my world is I was a young man. Okay, and when I say young man, in my teens and my 20s. Okay, I'm not a young man anymore, but back then, and I had thoughts in my mind. I wondered if I was okay, and I really didn't think I was. What I mean is, I thought maybe I was less than, like something was wrong. I was a little bit defective, super shy. I didn't know where I fit in. I didn't know, maybe you can relate to this, or maybe you could. I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
know about what the things that I had done. If I believed that something was wrong and I did something that I believed was wrong, I didn't know what that meant about me. I didn't know if everybody was operating on a different par than me, and so I was super shy. I tried to fit in. I tried to dress like the rest of the kids. I tried to get super good grades. I was pretty good at sports. And so I was trying to kind of assimilate to see if I was okay and see if I would fit in. But I had thoughts, I'll say, not voices. I had thoughts in
Mm,
my head that I was really thought that I was deficient somehow as a human being.
mm,
When I was in my late teens, I don't know, it's maybe just I was 16 or something, I experienced alcohol, and hey, super solution, all this disappeared and I felt
uh-huh,
better. I
uh-huh,
felt better, you know? And in part and mostly because of the way that I felt, this progressed, and it didn't take long, that led to me drinking to excess on a daily, when I say to excess, I mean to excess, on a
mhm.
daily basis for over 20 years. Daily
Wow.
basis for over 20 years. In the process of this, I was incarcerated, I was imprisoned, I caused people so much pain and there's permanency to my actions that I did, things that I can't make well, that I never can, and I can't, and they're just not fixable. I cause
Mm,
people so much pain and suffering that it's just a tremendous amount. Not even to mention taken away my ability to progress and learn. And, I've destroyed relationships, a 17-year marriage, gone, relationships with my children diminished to practically nothing. I didn't even know what was happening. I thought everything was okay because I was going to work
Mm.
and making everything okay, and everything was slowly disintegrating. And it was a rough time. And it doesn't when you wake up. See, here's the thing. I knew what I was doing was not a good thing. I didn't believe it was the right thing. But I woke up in the morning and I said, Shane, you got to stop doing this. And then I went and did it again. Within a few hours, I was drinking again for the whole rest of the day. And when you do that over a period of time, it changes you. It changes what you believe about yourself, and it is not a good place to be.
Yeah.
Um, and what I mean, like I said, I mean, I didn't miss any days. I mean, I am totally hiding my alcohol. I'm drunk. At the end, I was in a 20, on a daily basis, I was drinking in excess of 24 beers, probably sometimes, 30 on a daily basis. And I mean without fail. When I mean without fail over 20 years, it was 22 plus years. And there were 2 days that I was hospitalized that I did not drink to excess in that 22 plus year period. So
Wow.
I got to be very good and committed to alcohol, and it caused a tremendous amount of pain and suffering to people, and it
Mm.
limited myself and damaged the people around me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, well, that's quite a story and quite a journey, and I can identify with a lot of things that you said. I never had the addiction myself, but man, I struggled for so long with. I was very shy growing up, and had a lot of self doubt. As I progressed through life as a young adult, and it took a long time for me to overcome all of that and a lot of hard work. First of all, I was like, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? Where are these thoughts coming from? And it took a long time just to come to grips with that. And then to try to figure out how do I fix this, and it wasn't an overnight kind of thing. And I'm still a work in progress, uh, but yeah, the thing about it is, I think going through things like that, and we all have different stories, different journeys, right? But I think going through things like that, number one, we grow as we go through it, and we learn things that we can pass on to other people that we can be able to help other people with. Because guess what? If we're going through it, other people are going through either that or something very similar to what we've been through, and so now we're equipped to be able to help other people through those same sorts of trials and struggles. And can you relate to that? I'm sure you can.
Absolutely. I would not be able to be the voice and and be able to talk to people and relate to people had I not been where I have been. I mean, I am in a position to where I can feel you. I know a lot about what what's going on with forms of addiction. And you're exactly right. I just wanted to comment on your one of the two things that I've learned a lot of things, but there's two basic principles. And one is the one that you mentioned is that, we're not taught how to think about ourselves and what to believe about ourselves. It's not a class in school, how to think about yourself and how to know what
Mhm.
your thoughts are and what to believe about you. It's not taught that you can actually choose to believe whatever you want about yourself. I mean, have you ever really thought about that? Like, what if you could believe anything that you wanted to about yourself? Okay. And so, and the thing about it is possible if we can, first of all, come to know that it's possible that we can be able to do that. Okay. To be able to accept that fact, and then to be able to choose what it is, and then to be able to find out that there's steps that we can take on a daily basis that will be able to do it. Because like you said, this isn't something that you accomplish as a person and then it's done, you mark it off the list and you move on to the next thing. Our beliefs about ourselves are constantly changing. There's two things that affect them: the things that we do, we make meaning out of the things that we do, and we make meaning out of the things that happen to us. Like you said, you struggled. You said, why am I having these feelings about me? What does that mean about me? And I felt the same way. I couldn't, like, pin it on any trauma or anything like that. I mean, why is it like this? Maybe I'm kind of proving my thoughts to be true. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
so let's just say the things that we do, okay? And then all of us get to experience shame. What that means is all of us, and I've done some things that we won't talk about today, okay? We've all done some things that we feel shame for doing. And what that means is that we associated what we did with the value of who we are. We didn't separate those two things. We made what we did part of our value. Okay. And
Mhm.
so therefore
Mhm.
we're ashamed of that, and we think that we're less than, and we want to hide and not talk about it. So we're making meaning out of the things that we do that are good, and the things that we believe that are bad, and then what happens to us. Like in the worst case scenario, um, abuse, right? Abuse happens to us, and we need to make meaning with what that means. Or somebody says something that seems to be hurtful to us. We take meaning out of that. Or somebody gives us a compliment. It's an ongoing process. However,
Mhm.
we are not at the effect of those beliefs. We get to choose. We have the God-given agency to be able to choose our beliefs if we become aware of them. And my message to the world is that there is nothing, hear me, nothing that is going to have a more substantial impact on the value, on your capacity to give in this lifetime, and the contribution that you can make in this lifetime to the world, more that is more important than the beliefs that we choose to have about ourselves. And
Mhm.
I know this because I've been there. The
Yeah.
second thing,
Yeah.
I want to just quickly mention the second thing, because I don't know how much time what we have. The other thing is part of this is that um, we've also been given, I believe, we've been given the ability to feel. We're also not taught that that's okay. Here's what I mean. In my
Mhm.
story, I told you that I didn't feel good. These thoughts that I was thinking, trying to figure out who I was, and my low self-confidence and my low self-esteem and my poor self-image, they didn't feel good. And I wanted to feel better because I believed that the goal of life was to feel good. And that's why when I drank alcohol, I felt better. So therefore, I mean, naturally, I mean, not necessarily naturally, everybody doesn't, but I fell into that going to feel good all the time. And so I think we can all relate to that. I mean, if it's not, we do bad behaviors in an effort to feel good, and the really the message is I would I would ask you to consider, is the goal to feel happy and to be good, to feel good all the time? And I would suggest that the goal of life is not. Uh, part of
Right.
the part of the thing that we don't know as young people is that it's okay and normal to not feel good sometimes. And sometimes we're going to choose to feel that way, and sometimes it's just going to be that way. And it needs to be okay, because the more that we're constantly going after the feel good things with things that are detrimental in our long term are the things that we regret.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, agree 100%. For me, I had to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and do some things that were uncomfortable for me. One of the things that scared me more than anything was standing in front of a group of people and giving a speech or giving any kind of a talk in front of a group of people. And I went and joined the Toastmasters Club and started learning how to speak and getting more comfortable with speaking. And now I really enjoy standing on a stage in front of a group of people and giving a speech. Um, and I like to be prepared when I do that, but I really enjoy that. And most people, when they get to know me a little bit, and I tell them that I was really, really shy as a young person, they have a hard time believing it, and really quiet because I like to talk now. And it's just because I love people and I have so many things I want to share, you know, so many stories and things like that that I've accumulated over my lifetime. Um,
Let me
but yeah,
break that down.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me just make a quick comment on what you're
Mhm.
talking about right now. And that is how did you get from where you were to where you are? There's
Mhm.
when we talk about confidence, a lot of times we have a little bit of we're not really clear on the definition. So I'm going to give you my definitions. Confidence is being confident in a thing. In other words, now that you have spoke a lot in front of audiences, you're pretty confident at being a public speaker. So, and you could say that in most cases that I'm confident, riding a horse, okay, because I've been doing this for a long time. And that I look to my history, I've done this a long time, it feels pretty good. I'm confident in that thing. But before you got there, you didn't have your past to base this public speaking on.
Mhm.
And so self-confidence, what self-confidence is a feeling that we generate ourselves that allows us to exercise our courage, okay? Because that doesn't, when I say courage, people usually have a pretty positive idea about that. But the thing of
Uh-huh.
it is courage doesn't feel good. It's pretty damn scary, right?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
so when we choose, if we know how to create our own self-confidence, which is the feeling that propels us forward in progress, then we can exercise our courage, which is to do it anyway, even though it seems fearful. And then that's how we progress. And then eventually we do the thing, we do the thing, we do the thing. Then we can look to our past and we have confidence in the thing. So I think the important part about your story that I picked up on is if we want to get from A to B, we need to know how to generate a feeling of self-confidence to be able to get what we want in this world.
Yeah, you have to have enough courage to be able to take somewhat of a step of faith to do something that's going to be a little scary in the beginning, right?
For
And
sure.
the more you do it, the less scary it becomes, and that's part of it. I think one of the things that I did differently is that I began to develop some positive affirmations. Now, mine mostly are based on scripture. I do like to use scripture, and so I would say those things about myself to myself, and to sort of, if you will, reprogram my mind to think differently about myself. And that I believe has been part of the transformation process for me as well. And I don't know if that's something that you can speak to or not, or that you have um, thoughts on.
Yeah, for sure. We lay out 6 steps to 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 develop beliefs about ourselves.
Mhm.
And one of those is affirmations is part of that, and that's the language that we use about ourselves. The language that we use about ourselves, including affirmations. Okay, affirmations. If we if we visualize and if those affirmations, they need to be something that our brain at this time in our lives can accept, can be reality. If it's
Yeah.
something that's too far for us to accept, and if it's something that we can't visualize would be true, then we can't attach some feeling to it, then the affirmation has less value. But affirmations
Mhm.
are part of the language what I mean by language is not just the words that we say about ourselves, but our thoughts about ourselves. And I'm going to define a thought. A thought is simply
Mhm.
a phrase or a sentence that goes through our mind. So
Mhm.
our thoughts about ourselves and our words about ourselves matter. They matter a lot.
Yeah.
They are critical. And I'd like to just give one way to measure whether these thoughts and words that you're using about yourself to become aware of them. And here's how you can choose if you want to keep it. If you catch yourself with a thought or words that you would not want to think or say about someone that you deeply love, you don't want to be saying about yourself now or thinking.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's a good, really first step is to become self-aware, become aware of the things that you're saying about yourself. Because I know I was guilty of it in the past, and I hear it. My antenna goes up when I hear people putting themselves down. saying, I always do this or I always do that, speaking of something negative, some negative habit they have. And sometimes I'll correct people when I catch them saying that. I'm like, don't say that about yourself, you're better than that. And yeah, so I think we're on the same wavelength there. And I really like how you phrase it and how you put that into words. That's just really, really good. So,
Appreciate that. I just had one other thought I wanted to share, kind of on a related thing, and that is that uh, earlier today you had mentioned that you were speaking with a parent of an addict and what they were going through and the
mhm,
difficulties that they were having, and
mhm,
um, the thing about it is people do what they want, and we can't control them. And I want to, but we can't. I can't. I can barely control myself most of the time. So, but I think that what a lot of times that I don't think that we realize the actual influence that we have. A lot of times, our focus when I look at and I do, because I have this up close in my life too. I have addiction up close in my life with um, people that are very close to me. And so when we look at this, I tend to, and I see it also in people, that we just put the focus out there and we see how hard to watch it is, and we try to get them to do other things and they won't do it. And it's just, we feel hopeless and everything. And I think
mhm.
that I don't think that we give enough credit to uh, the influence that we actually have. And I believe that if we will can just turn the focus from out there just for a minute to here and just say, what can I do about me? Because if they are close in our lives, we have a tremendous influence, way more than we
Mhm.
can even imagine. I mean, and the things that we hope for them are the things that we really should be modeling as much as we can. And the more that we do that, the more of a positive influence that we're going to have with those people.
Yeah, oh man, that you knocked it out of the park with that one. That is probably the number one thing that I talk to parents about is like there's only one person in this equation that you have any control over, and that is you. But when you, like you said, when you turn the focus into working on you and improving you, you have tremendous influence over those other people in your life. And that influence is very powerful. And, you're making me think about a horse here too. And I don't know how true this is, but my thought would be that if you try to manhandle a horse or control a horse, you're going to meet with some resistance, and you want to work with influence and not attempts to control. That am
Oh,
I
for sure.
correct?
You are, for sure. Over time, over hundreds of years, we've tried to control horses. We've tried tactics. We've tried to physically constrain them. We tried to do everything, and they're kind of like people. If you tie them up in a knot, you can get them to do something that you want to, maybe for a minute or two, but you can't change their will. And so when with the moment that they have to, they're going to exercise their own free will. And horses are the same as people, and they are a great example because they have the relationship is a relationship with man and horse. It's very similar to man and man, or man and woman. It's similar to
Mhm.
human relationships
Yeah.
in that, I want a horse to do a certain thing and he has his own free will. And so there's so many parallels. Horses are really easy to see as far as this influence that we have, because it's not the exact same. They don't communicate back to me the same way that a human being does. They're more reactive, and they see everything. What I mean
Mhm.
is they are hyper aware of everything that happens. You walked into the barn, you think you got a secret, it's out. You don't have a secret. They know. You're going to try to
Right.
hide it. Good luck. That you can't. Okay. They
Mhm.
can see and feel, and they are hyper aware of everything that's going on and everything, and they totally react to it. They mirror what's inside of your heart and your mind. And the lesson really in that is for me, the more that I've thought about this and noticed it with horses and the reaction that I get and the good partnerships that I'm form and the disasters that I create sometimes, the
Mhm.
main lesson is that, as much as I might want to not let it out and hide it, people know too. You know, it's influencing people even though I
Right.
might not be completely aware of it. We
Yeah.
really have a tremendous influence on the people that we're around.
Yeah. That's so true. I mean, people, and I'm sure horses, like just as you described, we pick up on just body language, facial expressions, voice inflections. It's not just the spoken word. Sometimes it's the spoken word too, but we pick up on so many other things around us that sometimes we don't even recognize consciously that our subconscious is telling us about the people that we're coming in contact with. So yeah, agree. I agree.
Daryl, could I give you one last thought on this belief thing?
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to say that when addicts, and I'm going to speak for myself, are in a position, even though it's been a long time, I just want to tell you what happened to me in the end of my addiction. And that is that for a while, and when I mean a while, I mean a number of years, I started to cultivate a little teeny seed that I might not be doing this for my whole life. But that what I mean is that I didn't want to keep drinking. I wanted a way out. And I started a little bit kind of to see that maybe I could see myself as not dying as a fairly young person just drunk with, nobody around. I started to entertain the idea that I could be a person that didn't drink. Then in for about 8 months to almost a year, I I really thought about the resolve that it would take. And I didn't know if I could do it or not, but what I did know after much thought was that I was going to exercise my faith and I was just going to do as much as I could for a day. And so one day after 22 years, next, I don't know, whatever, 22 plus years, I woke up and I woke up at about 10:30 in the morning, which is pretty early for me in that stage of the game. And I drove myself to a detox. I was worried about the withdrawals from alcohol because I had heard that they could be really serious and I could have a convulsion and die. And I was at a place where in the mornings when I would wake up, I'd be pretty shaky. And so my body was pretty seriously addicted and craving alcohol. So I drove myself to a detox the one Sunday morning and I checked myself in and it was a humbling experience. Because I was used to running my own company and I didn't want to turn my phone into somebody else and go through all that process. And I'd been hiding it for so long. I'd been living in so much shame, but I got to a place where I just didn't care about it. It was so much pain that I was living with inside of my own head that I decided that I was going to do it. So I checked myself into this detox place and I stayed there for 3 days and 2 nights. And I drove out of there and I went on about my life. And the first day, I went to an AA meeting. And then I just went on about my life. And the first day, I didn't drink. And then the second day, I didn't drink. And now it's been eight. And the second Saturday of this month, it'll be 8 years. So I'm just saying that the power of beliefs that we have about ourselves is meaningful. It's a
Mm.
big deal. And I'm also just would like to be one little piece that there can be hope.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Shane. I appreciate that. Man, if there's any addicts out there listening, anybody out there who's struggling with addiction, I would just say, take Shane's words to heart. And there's safe places where you can go to share, to talk, to open up to other people who are going through something similar to what you're going through. Reach out and because there's a lot of power in being able to open up and talk about it, and look for those types of places out there. Reach out and get some help. And man, because we all struggle with different things in life, but at the end of the day, life is too short to just wander through life like that having these having all this self-doubt. And I'm a firm believer that God, he created us in his image. He did not create any junk. But we're put here to, there's a process for us to become stronger and to grow into the people we were created to be. And man, don't get down on yourself. Be willing to lean into the pain and get the help that you need and grow through that process to become that person that you were created to be. Because there's a lot of other people out there waiting on you. They need you. They need your story. And man, life, that's what life is all about. You know, it's not about possessions. It's not about how much you can obtain or what kind of titles you can get. It's about growing into the person God created you to be, and being able to use the gifts and the skills that God has given you to help other people. And that's what I see in you, Shane, that you have leaned into that. They're using horses as a way to reach other people and to help people. And man, I just love it. I love your story. It's so great. And you've brought out a lot of good things in me today too.
I
It's been a
appreciate
great
that. And
conversation.
I totally echo your statement. The thing of it, I totally agree that, you know, we are invaluable souls in God. The more that we can come to know that and it doesn't matter, hear this, regardless of what you have done, okay? Regardless of what you have done, you still have the same value as Daryl, as me, as your neighbor, as anyone in the same world, no more, no less, regardless of what you have done. If God will let it go, we can let it go ourselves. We can if we choose to, but we are those people, regardless of what we have done. And the more that we can come to know that, the more that we can have more peace and be a better influence and make a better contribution to the people and to the world, the people that we love in the world.
Thank you, Shane. Man, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. I really appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure to have you here today and to get to know you better and have this conversation. I know the listeners out there are going to get a lot out of this. Remind us one more time how they can find you. Just give us your information there.
Sure. Thanks again. Appreciate this opportunity to be with you. You can find out about uh, us and stable living at thehorsemanshipjourney.com. Thank you again, Daryl. God bless.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you for tuning in to When God Intervenes. If you found today's episode